It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of TAXITV Live. Yeah, baby. Woo-hoo. All this energy I have, it's fake. I got 3 hours of sleep last night. Anyway, I'd like to welcome today's special guest, Mr. Paul Croteau.
What's going on, folks?
And today we're going to talk about AI. Friend or foe? Yeah, let's give that a round of applause. They're so... Hi, Paulie, by the way. Hello, welcome to the big show.
Howdy. Good to be here.
There have been so many things done on YouTube about AI, and I probably read a little more and watch a little more than the average person, but not as much as our friend Paul, who is obsessed with it in a good way, in a healthy way. And so he and I have conversations, and he fills me in on what he has figured out because he burns the midnight oil doing it while I'm probably watching Seinfeld reruns or something. But I personally, this is my own personal feeling, is why is everybody so freaked out now? There is potential there that you could be freaked out about, but there's good stuff there. So we're going to take kind of an even-handed look at all of it and rely heavily on Paul's observations that he's made by researching a lot of the stuff. So welcome to everybody in the chat room. We're very happy to have you here today. And again, I really had like 3 hours and 5 minutes of sleep last night. So if I do a faceplant during the show, it's not that you're boring, Paul.
No, it's okay. Well, honestly, though, one of my cats woke me up at 3:30 in the morning out of a deep sleep. So, and when I was awake, my brain won't let me stop. So I'm kind of there with you. I might have had 5 hours. So, folks, I'm going to put a disclaimer. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what Michael's going to say. This is like an open dialogue. It could get us in trouble. Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be open, but it's going to be honest. And
absolutely.
I'm a little freaked out that people are so freaked out about it.
Yeah.
And it's confusing. There are a lot of wires to unravel in this amplifier. But let's talk about it. But I think people are freaking out a little too early. So anyway, and I want to let people know, for people who are watching this that aren't regulars, that Paul Croteau, our guest today, is a Taxi member, has been for several years now, musician, songwriter, composer, producer, and he's probably done more AI research than all the rest of us put together. So let's jump right into it.
Sure thing.
For people who haven't done any research but just have heard little conversational stuff about it, explain what AI is in the context of music. I'm kind of shocked when I talk to friends or family members how many people really don't know what it is. So explain that, and then we'll talk about how it works. But for now, just explain what it is in the context of music.
Sure. So artificial intelligence. It's artificial. It's not natural. Intelligence is a questionable term. There's also artificial ignorance, artificial stupidity. But artificial intelligence is a machine learning computer-based model that computers...
You've already lost them.
I have.
You have.
It's a non-human way of creating something, whether it be text or images or music. It's based on math. I've lost a lot of you there. It's based on algorithms. I've looked at some of these algorithms and my eyes glaze over and I'm like, I don't know what this means. I've tried reading this stuff. I don't understand a lot of it, but basically it's just computers ingesting a bunch of data and then trying to replicate what the user asks them to based on what they've studied and learned from the patterns of text or images or music, etc. Did that suffice, you think?
Yeah. Okay. So my take on it is our human brain collects everything we see, hear, touch, smell, anything that our senses deliver to our brain. Certain amount of it gets stored in our brain for either immediate recall, intermediate recall, or long-term recall. I can still remember every microphone I used on every guitar amp on any session I did back in the 70s. I didn't say, okay, I've got to memorize this. And funny enough, every book I read for school that I was supposed to memorize, I couldn't. But, that's a form of, to me, that's what AI is. It's just a big frickin' brain.
It's a bunch of data that has been analyzed for patterns, and then it's being trying to be repeated. It is not sampling. It's not a
Right.
copy of something. It's not an audio file. Oh, you want a song that sounds like Bruno Mars. It's not going to get a clip and then give you that clip. AI is definitely not sampling.
That might be the most important thing you said today, or will say today, because I think a lot of people think that,
Right.
and it's not sampling. So explain the difference. What generative AI is. People hear that phrase and they don't really understand what generative is, and you already covered the audio sampling. So it's not listening to a saxophone and making a recording, a digital audio recording of that saxophone, playing it back. It's looking at the characteristics of it, and generative means to generate, right? So take
Exactly.
it
So music tools, they ingest data and it's all broken down. What's really kind of weird is that when computers learn music, they're actually not listening to audio. They're looking at pictures. Music, audio, MIDI files, even pictures of scores can be used to train AI tools. Everything gets converted to images, and then the AI analyzes the images over time, spectrograms, et cetera, all these really complex things. And it looks for differences in the time bars, in the frequency bars, in the intensity, loud or soft, et cetera.
How many data points let's say I want to do a piano version of Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I'm going to use AI. I can't tell AI, give me a piano version of Mary Had a Little Lamb, but I could say, AI, give me a piano vocal song about a little girl who had a fuzzy little barnyard animal, blah, 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 make it age appropriate for 4-year-olds.
Right.
Give it prompts like that to try and get some reasonable facsimile to what you're looking for. So,
Nice.
how
It takes
many?
millions.
What?
It takes millions and millions of data points. So it
Okay,
depends on
that
how,
was-
how. Yeah. So for example, you're from as the acclaimed engineer you are, 44.1K or 48K, 48,000 cycles per second.
Right.
You could choose to train AI models at that frequency, meaning 48,000 slices of 1 second of music, and AI can look at all those 48,000 if you're talking about 48K rate, or 44,100 if you're at 44.1K. So the trainers figure out what is the optimal frequency to get the most training, because it's kind of like DPI, or it's kind of like recording your DAW project at 96 kilohertz instead of 48. Can you hear the difference? No, you can't. Why waste the hard drive space? So you got to figure out what's the proper distance or time in 1 second. How many slices of 1 second of audio should I do? It's not 48,000. What I've read so far, it's between 10 to 30 milliseconds.
Okay.
So,
wow.
So that's what, if it's 10, that means it's 100 slices per second versus 44,000. And of course, they try different rates to see, okay, we did it at 100 milliseconds and we got this result. We did it at 10 milliseconds. We got a better result, but it took 5 times as long. So the scientists will tweak the numbers, the dials, like an engineer does for the sound, to figure out what the proper ratio is, consuming their resources, etc.
Okay. So, and when it generates something, you give it prompts. One thing that I learned, I have used Suno somewhat extensively, probably not as much as you. Suno is a current website that generates music. I'm going to give everybody an example. So I brought the staff in here, the A&R staff one day, not the screeners, but the guys who actually like assign screeners and bring in listings, things like that. And we're all musicians and we all, studio nuts. So I sat down and I told Suno to create probably like a tension cue or something, some sort of simple instrumental cue. And I didn't give it a time. I didn't say make it 90 seconds to 120 seconds. I didn't give it much other than saying keep it sparse and blah, blah, blah. I gave it 2 or 3 very simple instructions. And what came back, by the way, had the best string sound I've ever heard, not done by real musicians. That blew me away. The cue itself was very linear, very boring, had no arc, no developmental arc to it whatsoever. And even though I gave it a time frame, it came back with like 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So, and I hear that, and I've experienced that in using anything from ChatGPT to Suno. If I tell ChatGPT to write something for the Taxi newsletter, it comes back. It's like, okay, if I hired a new employee that had never written a newsletter and I say, sit down and write me an article, ChatGPT might beat that rookie. But compared to me, who has written, unfortunately, thousands of them over 32 years, I look at that and I look at mine. So I write it and then I shove it in there and say, I give it a couple of prompts. Say, correct it for cohesiveness, spelling, grammar, and punctuation. And it just cleans up. It does like a 5% cleanup on what I've done. So the funny thing about my little musical story with Suno was that after the other folks left my office, I thought, I need to get this to do something better than this. I gave it very specific instructions. I told it to give me 4 bars that were sparse with 3 instruments. The next 4 bars add an instrument. The next 4 bars add yet another instrument, all while staying on the same vibe and melody and so on. And then break it down, like at bar 32 or something, break it down for 8 bars, take the chord progression and reverse it, strip it down to a couple of instruments, build it back up in the second 4 of 8 bars, and then go back to the original pattern. So I had to have the knowledge of how to construct a cue, even though I've never done one in my life. I know how to take them apart because I own Taxi. So I gave it specific instructions, and what it came back with was really well done as far as following my instructions. It sounded like a real cue, but it sounded like crap. The audio on it didn't sound good. So it's funny that I got one that was completely boring and like, nobody's got anything to worry about, but with amazing string sample, or not a string sample, I mean amazing string sound. And then the next one had all the structural stuff correct, but it sounded like dog poop. So there you go. That's nobody's got to worry just yet.
No, not yet. And it's only going to get better. So people need to understand, the technology is new. Suno and I think Udio originally launched as a company in November, but they're both Udio and Suno basically got popular in March or April of this year alone.
Right.
So 6 months ago, or less. We are in the Pong stages of AI music. For those kids out there, Pong was a video game with 2 lines that bounced the ball back and forth. Exactly. We are in the Pong stages of AI music generation, and it's pretty dang good. I remember, I was a graphic artist for a while, and I'm into animation, and I was into video games. I'm an '80s kid, so coin-operated video games, that was my thing. But then the graphics start getting better and better, and then Mist comes out, and then things happen. Graphics get better. CPUs and GPUs get better for computers to make better graphics on screen. And then when I was in grad school, I remember in the mid 90s, and Toy Story came out. Oh my God, this is possible. And then we had the movie with all the blue people.
I actually love that movie. I just can't think of the title.
I can't think of the dang name.
I had 3 hours done by the same guy, James Cameron, who did The Abyss. So
you got humans versus
Avatar.
Animated Avatar. Thank you very much. Edmund gets the points for that one. So it gets better and better. And now look at automation today, animation today. So we're just still in the Pong state. Maybe we're at Pac-Man. Maybe we're at 16-bit, Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, etc. It's only going to get better. So all the shortcomings, when you create something today with the tools, it's easy to laugh and point. That's fine. When people try to learn how to fly, lots of planes crash before they learn how to fly. Same thing for cars, same thing for boats, etc. Technology has to evolve and fail many times before it gets it right. And so I think we're just a single-digit years away, a couple, 2, 3, 5 max, before the quality is just insanely good and accurate.
Okay.
I'm surprised, Michael, that you said, I'm sorry to keep going, that you said you were able to give the tool, do this for this long, change that long, change that long. I didn't realize that those tools are there, have those capabilities yet. I need to check into that. Because that's one of the shortcomings we have today. You can't necessarily specify chord changes or motivic, story arc, like you said, to very much an extent. It's not going to give us MIDI files. It's not going to give us stems. We got so many more things we can do from a production perspective, but it will get there.
So there's a lot of fear about AI. What
Absolutely.
is it that people fear? Is it, well, I'm going to let you answer that question. What do they fear?
There's a lot. First, there's the fear of the unknown. They don't understand it, and so their fear is there's some business, there's some personal, in my opinion. Job security for folks that are depending on music creation as an income source. There is low-hanging fruit. These tools are going to take away drone composers and hell, neoclassical piano composers, even cocktail jazz. There's a lot of styles that can be created at a quality today that are completely suitable for underscore. One of my videos I did showed some examples of those when I was first checking out what Suno can do. I'm like, give me some trap beats. That absolutely works. Give me some neoclassical piano. That's a De Beers commercial. Give me this. That's, I mean, it's there today. So folks that are generating revenue with these tools, they are at risk. So that's a legitimate concern to a certain extent. What percentage of composers out there are actually making a living doing this? I think it's a much smaller percentage of those complaining or scared than folks will admit to. But the job security is a big one. One of the things I've seen a ton of in the comments in my videos is a devaluing of humanness and skill. People say, if these tools get any better, no one's going to care about my music that I created and all the work I did. I mean, Paul is a saxophone player for 40 years. I worked really hard on my tone, my time, my pitch, my style. And if I'm playing a solo, someone's going to say, hey, man, is that really you or is that AI? Now, personally, I don't care what you think if it's me or not. I know it's me. I don't put value in what others think of that. But a lot of folks do value the feedback and input of others. They're concerned, well, yeah, of course I did that. That's my piano playing. That's my composition.
Yeah, we all love validation. It's a form of self-love. We can invite the love into us by creating something that makes people go, wow, you're so talented. Or, exactly. Dad, I'm so proud of the fact that you got a piece of music in this TV show that I actually watch.
Exactly. So that's a human thing. It's not necessarily rational. It's emotional. I think if you're worried about AI music devaluating your own skill as a musician, just kind of have some self-reflection and realize that no, it doesn't matter what people think. You know you created the music. The people around you know you created that music. And you say, yeah, I created that music. That's great. Just don't lie. Because if you get busted, then you're kind of messed up. So I don't worry about it. But it's an emotional fear. There's also concerns about copyright. Are we going to steal, revenue? Or is my neoclassical piano music going to be trained somehow and someone's going to copy my tune? There's that.
Let's talk about that.
Sure.
And by the way, people should go check out Paul's videos. He's done several of them, and they're very good. How can they get to your YouTube channel? Give them the.
You can just search for this. So you can actually go to YouTube. Yeah, you could go to youtube.com/@ Yo Pauly Music. So, or just search for Yo Pauly Music with an IE, and you'll find me.
So yeah, I recommend his videos. I've learned a lot from watching them, and
let's see if we get me above 4,000 subscribers today. I challenge all of you to go subscribe. I'm almost at 4,000.
He is less about freaking out and hating it, more about actually understanding it, and you'll get that when you watch his videos. So, can you give us a 2-minute video or a 2-minute overview of the types of articles that you've poured over the last few months? Did you and I both? I read the
lawsuit.
No, not the lawsuit. Well, I have read parts of the lawsuit, but I read the Brits. The UK has a thing explaining their stance on AI. And I got a hold of that in the American one and contrasted the two. And
I've seen that. I've seen record company statements, etc. I started researching music AI. Google announced Music LM about a year ago, April and May of last year. I actually got one of the Google LM little MIDI keyboards. My daughter's got it at her apartment right now, but I got it because for $99, I got it for free because a friend of mine works there. But yeah, they would send you an Amazon, a Google logoed keyboard and to play with their Music LM, and it was difficult to try to learn and get anything out of. So I started working on it back then. That tool was based on a very boring symbol and number filled paper from 2017 about creating music via AI.
Okay.
I've checked out the lawsuit. I've checked out myriad videos. I'm constantly researching videos. I've watched every interview of Mikey Schulman, the CEO and co-founder of Suno, that I can. I'm actually working on a video about one of his interviews. I hope to release that this week. I'm an information junkie. Everything I can find on AI. I'm meeting people on LinkedIn, AI engineers, trying to get interviews with them, because I'm still struggling with how music gets turned into pictures and what it learns from the pictures and how it creates. I want to know how it works as an engineer. I've been an IT engineer for 30 years, so I'm struggling to learn. But any resource I can find, I'm trying to ingest it.
Okay, so that said, and thank you for doing the work that the rest of us are too lazy, speaking for myself, to do. But technology always moves faster than legislation. Legislation, no matter what the case, seems to move very slow all the time.
Yeah.
So while people are freaking out, this is kind of my personal take, and it could change tomorrow. Something could be released tomorrow, happen tomorrow, and I go, oh, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
But NBC won't let any music library land on any of their shows unless that library is exclusive only and has errors and omissions insurance. That indemnifies NBC from getting involved in any lawsuits.
Right.
So they're certainly not going to let any AI generated music, if they can help identify it and avoid using it, because as we all know, I think everybody knows, but just in case everybody on here doesn't have some knowledge, AI music under American copyright law cannot be copyrighted. Correct. That may be amended 3 years from now or 5 years from now or 20 or 50 years from now.
Or
who
next
knows?
month.
Yeah. But the way things are moving, the way things move in government, I wouldn't count on that. And I think that the government has bigger fish to fry right now, maybe. So I think that while the technology is going to get us there fast, there won't be ways to use that music. Now, maybe on Spotify, I don't know how Spotify feels about it. Maybe you know more than I do, but let's hang on for a minute on that. As far as using AI-generated music for film and television placements, it's the end user gets to determine what their level of tolerance is as to using it. My own observation from being in the industry for a long time and knowing a lot of people and a lot of stuff just from being around is they're going to try really hard not to use it because they don't want to end up in a lawsuit. And here's something that nobody has mentioned anywhere that I've seen, but I lived through it, so I remember it and can apply it to this use case. Back in the early 90s, a lot of shows that were made for I forget which generation they were, but like Dawson's Creek type shows that took off on whatever channel that was that had a lot of that kind of stuff. They put a lot of cool music from like indie artists in those shows. And some of those artists were like an indie artist had gotten signed and maybe just starting to blow up on a record label. They licensed it for that use only. Nowadays, licenses say, for the known universe. All known uses in the known universe. Language kind of like that. I'm certainly not an attorney. But they do that because they learned a very valuable lesson in the early to like 1992 was when I first started seeing it. And this went on till about 2002. So we had a decade of them putting music in shows, and we still had DVD box sets. They didn't have anything in their agreement when they licensed music from Paul Croteau. We need a little cocktail jazz with a saxophone for this restaurant scene in a TV show. And then they went to put it on a DVD. Well, that wasn't kosher according to the contract that the library had with the composer or that the end user, meaning a network, had with the library. And so they had to replace, because they went back to those people and said, oh, we would like to relicense that. And they thought they would get it at the same price that they got it for the TV show. And the publishers and the music libraries, it was mostly major labels and publishers, but to some extent music libraries said, not so fast, bucko. They knew they had them over a barrel, and they tried to charge exorbitant amounts of money. And that's when the production companies that were doing the DVD box sets had their people come to Taxi and say, can you find us something that is in this ballpark? Can you find us something in that ballpark? So nobody wants to get caught in that situation again where they allow AI music into their productions and then some hiccup happens that all that music's got to be taken out and replaced later. So they're being extremely careful to be legal, be pragmatic, be practical, so that they don't screw themselves over because they went for, like, well, I mean, hypothetically, Warner Brothers, Universal TV, they could create their own music. They don't need to license it from a library, and libraries wouldn't need to license it from composers.
Right.
So there's that. So as much as I'm sleeping with one eye open, because I worry about our customers, I worry about this company, I worry about the future for all musicians.
Yeah.
I think that we've got more than a few years before people figure out the legal stuff, which makes it, technology will get there, but you won't be able to use it, at least not for the application that we all know and love, which is sync. All right.
It's complex for sure.
I actually wrote some questions for this. Okay, let's talk about the lawsuit. So both Udio and Suno, which are the two kind of preeminent companies that everybody seems to be aware of that are making generative music, they just recently got hit with a lawsuit about 2 weeks ago, I think. And you have spent more time. Can you bullet point the lawsuit for us, even though I know you're not an attorney, but people should be aware of what they're being sued for?
Yeah, so in general, major companies, Sony, Capitol, Warner, ARG, UMG, some others, they're saying they're suing for copyright infringement, but the concern is that this is very specific and very important. The lawsuit is about whether or not Suno used copyrighted material to train its models. So the lawsuit will only answer to, did they use stuff illegally? Should they have to compensate the record labels and or artists for it? So what they're seeking are damages. They want to force Suno to say, yes, we admit to doing this illegal thing. Yes, we will stop doing this illegal thing. And then we will delete or cancel or kill all the stuff we've done. And they're threatening to fine them $150,000 per violation listed in the lawsuit.
Right, and they didn't make up that number. That number is what's specified for damages up to $150K per incident.
Right. It's the actual. But it's interesting though, because when you do the math on it, so in the lawsuit they list 662 songs that they say are violations of copyright. At $150,000 each, it's $99.3 million. What's funny, it's 662. If they had just taken it a step further and done 666, just to be evil, it would have been $99.9 million. It's $100 million. That
in the end, they would love to have the money. What they really want is stock in both those companies.
Bingo.
Yep.
And that's the conversation across all the platforms. Is that, look, the record companies are not suing to protect artists' creativity and their self-esteem. They're suing to protect their revenue or get more. So I think they're going to come to an agreement and say, oh, Suno, you may certainly use this stuff as long as we get 50% cut or 70% or whatever it's going to be. And everything's fine because it's always about the money, as some folks in chat have said already. But there's some things in the lawsuit, and I actually had this up because I thought this might come up during the conversation. There are two quotes I talk about in a couple of my videos about the lawsuit. It's the intent, and I think if you read the whole lawsuit, which I've done because I have no life, I think there's some over prosecution potentially of what they're saying that Suno did. Oh my Lord, believe that or not?
That's never happened before.
As the saying goes, you can prosecute a ham sandwich or convict a ham sandwich if you want. So two of the points they said, I actually wrote this down. Suno feeds the copyrighted recordings into its AI model, not merely to deconstruct their expressive content or learn, but with the explicit aim of imitating these expressive features that could serve as substitutes for and compete with the original recordings. So one of their assertions is that Suno is training with the intent of replacing existing works. And then the second bullet point I wrote down was there's no functional purpose for Suno's AI model to ingest the copyrighted recordings other than to spit out new competing music files. So the record companies are saying, you're trying intentionally to replicate our stuff and you're trying to compete with us. I'm creating a video that's going to take the exact opposite side of that. That's not what the company intends. But no one cares about intent. It's about results and then users. It is a mess.
And unless they've got somebody that was privy to a meeting where they said, our intent is always very hard to prove.
Yeah. Well, ask Ed Sheeran or Katy Perry how that goes, because juries can be persuaded. Adam Neely did a great video about that too. It's a game.
Looking at the people in the chat room during this show, they are all just as guilty. Every single one of them in that chat room is just as guilty as AI. And I'm not here to defend AI, but let's think about this, folks. All of us, every last one of us, have been influenced by everything we've heard before us that we liked and went, oh, that's so cool. Our brain remembers that stuff to some extent, and sooner or later we pull it out and recycle it and make it our own. And really, my personal opinion is that's what AI is doing. It's just doing it on a much, much, much grander scale.
Right.
It does it much faster, much more efficiently. But come on, the Beatles imitated Chuck Berry and half a dozen other, black artists that preceded them. All of us. I know when I still worked in a studio, if I heard a record, if I heard something on the radio, I would stop at the record store on my way home. I would buy the album. I would go home. I had a pair of really nice studio monitors at home. I'd lie on my living room floor with the monitors towed in, looking at me, and I would take that album cover and I would take the latest edition of Recording Engineer Producer magazine and I would read how Fleetwood Mac got that guitar sound on Lindsey's guitar, or how they used a studio chair with drumsticks. And I would make notes about all that stuff. And sometimes I would go back to it 3 years later, 5 years later, whatever, and go, you know what? If I had that drumstick on a chair thing, I didn't exactly replicate it, but the idea came from something I heard before, and what I did was similar. Is that copyright infringement? I didn't copy the lyric. I didn't copy the melody. I copied a texture, an idea, a vibe. So that is ultimately, I think personally, again, not a lawyer, not as expert or as well educated as you are in this, but that's where the battle will be fought. Can you sue somebody for being inspired, having a more efficient way to store and retrieve ideas?
Right. So it's a really interesting conversation. We could do a whole show on just this. So
we are.
Look at that concept. Yeah. So, and I've got a lot of heated comments on my videos about this because I generally say AI learns the same way as musicians do, just at scale, like you just mentioned. Now, specifically, the steps are no. We don't convert music to pictures and all this other crap. But the main concept is we listen, we study, we repeat. Right. Anyone out there, and I saw Tim Walker's comment saying that when we perform, we are our own. We sound like ourselves. Yes, we do, but we don't sound original. Rare is the musician that is a true innovator. Beethoven, Hendrix. You can choose the very small Coltrane. They're very Miles Davis. The few folks were true innovators, but even they had influences. But I talk about the concept of musical lineage. We all listen to things. We take a piece of this and take a piece of that. And we're back in the day, we used to buy records and CDs and DVDs, et cetera. Now we just listen, we stream. Spotify has like 350 million free user accounts. Folks that are listening to music for free. They just got to go through the ads. We have radio. We have YouTube. We're not paying for that stuff. We can ingest all these musical styles to formulate our own style. But going towards the path of, we need to compensate or pay or give credit to those influences, I say no. Why? Taylor Swift, very, very popular. Ariana Grande, one of the great voices out there today. You created a song, Suno, that sounds like Ariana Grande. Well, good for you. We got to pay Ariana Grande. Well, no. Do we pay Ariana Grande because she was influenced by Mariah Carey? Mariah was influenced by Whitney. Whitney was influenced by Aretha Franklin. Aretha was influenced by
And to
Mahalia
what
Jackson.
extent or what percentage? We're talking, micro payments on a tiny little scale that we can't even imagine.
Joe Bonamassa, Stevie Ray Vaughan goes back to Clapton, goes back to B.B. King, goes back to T-Bone Walker. I could do it for every genre. You can do it for authors and composers and film people. Where do you stop the influential line? Who do we get? Eventually, all we do is play blues musicians because that's the foundation of everything.
Adam and Eve, because that's where it all started.
Yeah. So we're not. We are all taking influences from multiple genres. How do you fractionalize that? Decide what influence goes to James Brown, what influence goes to Prince, what influence goes to Louis Armstrong. It's an impossible thing that people get hung up on. Let's just admit that as humans, we all ingest sources from everywhere. We learn from that, and we try to create something new based on our influences. And I think that's the intent. I don't think that the folks at Suno had any ill intent in saying, we want to learn and teach this model a new skill, creating music. And then lawyers say, with the intent of competing or generating copies of existing works. No, they wanted to create a tool that can help folks create music on their own. It's interesting.
They had to... While I will buy the argument that it wasn't evil intent at its genesis, I would also make the argument that you couldn't sit in a room discussing this and not think, oh my God, this could totally upend the music industry. You don't think?
So okay. I get where you're going from.
All right.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I do that. I'm an interrupter. I get excited like a Labrador seeing a tennis ball, and I just got to go get it. So I think, so for example, Mikey Schumann and his and the 3 or 4 other co-founders are all musicians. Schumann's brilliant. MIT or Columbia physics major, PhD. I mean, brilliant. He's kind of got that alien look about him too, like a lot of the folks that do technology stuff. Makes you think, are they not from here? But anyway, they're brilliant. But they're all
a whole other episode, Bucko.
Totally. It was aliens. Anyway, insert meme. They were all musicians, and they all were talking about creating music and analyzing it, learning and helping others do it. I don't think any of them have any clue about this little cottage industry that you helped create and that we all participate in, this sync music business. If you look at the math, us as creatives are a small percentage of human society, and take that percentage of, so you got society, and then you got, people that are musicians and creators, etc., lyricists, and then you got this little pie, and now you squish that to a very, very tiny percentage of folks that actually write music for a living, and then you take that to a smaller percentage of the folks that actually write music for TV. It's kind of like taking a look at the world of athletes, and we got all these kids playing little peewee, baseball and football, and then they go to high school and they get real good. Maybe they get recruited to D1, and then they go to D1. What percentage of D1 players get drafted? What percentage of those get drafted to actually play, and then make the team? It's just this shrinking return. So we're a very passionate, vocal, but tiny, tiny percentage of the folks that really care about this stuff. The 99.9% of people listening to music do not do what you just described a couple of minutes ago. You got vinyl, you put it down with your speakers, and you sat and you listened critically to music. I grew up doing that. I would put vinyl on. I could still, drop the needle and listen to a Sonny Stitt recording or a Beethoven symphony or whatever. And I would sit in my dad's recliner when he wasn't home with the big speakers pointing at me, and I would listen, close my eyes and envision things. No one listens critically. People are just, you got 5 kids.
My daughters listen with one ear pod.
Yes, they split it. So my son used to do that. So I told them, hey guys, if you're going to do that, go to the Apple phone and change it to mono so you're both hearing the entire song at least. Okay. But we don't listen critically anymore. So yes, we are passionate. We care about this stuff. Most people in the world really don't care about music. Most people can't identify instruments other than a drum, a guitar, and a piano. They don't care. Oh, you're a great musician. Your mother loves your music. Most people just don't critically listen. So a lot of folks are getting upset. I think it's legitimate. I'm not dismissing their concerns, but the world just really doesn't care.
The world should care when you don't need well, Tom Cruise is the obvious choice or obvious reference for this. When you replace an actor with an AI actor and it looks like the actor, or you let's say you make a submission to Taxi and it needs a female vocal that sounds like Dolly Parton, and you use AI to make Dolly Parton, and it's really,
That's a different category.
right. So let's talk about that category, because that I completely get, and that is pretty much there. There have been enough uses of that where you go, wow, that's like weeks away from being really, really good.
Image and likeness has to be protected. If I do a rap and I go and get Dr. Dre or Eminem, they should be compensated for that if they allowed it in the first place. If I get a Dolly Parton singer, a Shania Twain country vocal or whatever, they should absolutely be protected, just like athletes in college. Name, image, and likeness. That needs to be protected, but that's not the same as AI-generated music.
Right. So, yeah, there's so much to iron out that we are a ways down the road. I think we agree, technology will get there a lot sooner than what we're allowed to do with that technology. You can have fun with it all night long at home. You can play it for friends. You could share it with friends. But what you can't do is something commercial with it right now, because the law never would have envisioned this. Just to let everybody know, I've been to room B14, which is the copyright office in the belly of the Library of Congress. And when I was waiting for the lady to acknowledge the fact that I was there and needed some help, I look over and I see one of those little metal carts that you would put a 16 millimeter film projector on when you're in fourth grade watching those Bell Labs movies or whatever. Hemo the Magnificent. I can't believe I still remember the title of that one. I saw parchment with ribbons rolled up on a thing, and the lady finally looked at me. "Can I help you, sir?" And I went, "Am I looking at what I think I'm looking at?" She goes, "Oh yes." So they still have parchment rolls in the copyright office. Why? I'm sure it's way out of copyright at this point. It's PD. Yeah. Maybe they were cleaning out shelves and they found a box of them. I don't know, but I thought that was funny. Anyway, it's going to be a very, very long time before they catch up to what is going on.
If they catch up at all.
Yeah. So we have, Taxi does at least quarterly meetings with many of our currently active production music library clients, Zoom meetings. And they like it. It's bringing colleagues, competitors, but colleagues nonetheless together. And we talk about stuff. We talk about how Taxi can serve them better. We talk about their perception of the quality of our members' work. And in our last Zoom, we were talking about AI because it's obviously a thing. And I asked the question, do you guys, how do you feel about AI? Look at you. You're in the chat. You muted yourself. Are you back?
I did because of the dry cough. I'm back.
Okay. As opposed to a wet one. Yes. Anyway, so I asked them, and they said, yeah, you know, they had different levels of tolerance for what form of AI. And so we're currently trying to find a way in a sentence versus a 1,000-word document that gets pasted into every listing. This company will accept music created with AI drums, but will not accept music with an AI vocal or an AI melody, or this or that, the other thing. So it's harder than I thought it was going to be to come up with kind of a universal statement. But they all don't want AI-generated music because they worry about, will NBC, and I keep picking on NBC for that, you know, but will anybody in the industry use something that can't be copyrighted? You would think that the PROs, and maybe they are working very diligently behind the scenes and I'm not aware of it, but the PROs have a very vested interest in all this, and they've got a lot of money and they've got lobbyists in DC. So there's probably stuff going on in the background that we don't know about, but just know that there are people that are bigger and wealthier and have more to lose than all of us, even in aggregate, that will be fighting to protect their slice of the pie, which ultimately, in many, if not most, or all cases, will protect yours, ours as well. So I'm a little bit comforted by that. So where is that line? I made a note in the notes that I sent to Paul before the show. Discuss the problem of where the line is as to using AI music creation. Fully generative creations versus using plugins that use AI. What about AI vocal harmony stacks? And I asked that in the meeting with all the libraries. And I don't think I got a single library. It said, no. If it's got an AI vocal stack, I can't use it. Which is interesting. I mean, but the AI didn't create the whole thing. It didn't create the melody. It didn't create the composition. What about... Hang on, page
Well, the whole thing is based on the fear of being sued. And Michael, I got to go back to what you said about what words to put in your listing, because it'll be a 2-page paragraph. You're making the fatal flaw assumption that taxi members are actually reading the listings properly in the first place.
No, believe me, I'm well aware. But we have to put it in there for the protection of our clients. And companies that provide E&O insurance, errors and omission insurance, which every music library should have. It means if somebody missed something, didn't fill out a name properly, or didn't vet a piece of music to find out who all the composers were, and something slips through the cracks and comes back to bite somebody on the butt in the form of a lawsuit, the E&O insurance should cover that. So what about AI audio mastering, which I brought up to the libraries that were in the meeting with us, and they went, that's fine.
Yeah,
and by the way, I said to them, how many of you guys actually give a damn about if music is mastered when somebody submits it to your library? And they're like, yeah, as long as the levels are decent and it's got the right amount of bottom and top and a little bit of compression, it's fine. We don't need to be mastered.
And they don't know. Honestly, they just don't know. I mean, you mentioned mastering. You got Lander, which has been around for a couple of years, LANDR. You got Isotope Ozone. Yeah, Ozone. I use Ozone now, and now the latest release of Logic Pro includes a mastering plugin. So can I not use that? And so there are so many facets, and it's this zero tolerance knee-jerk emotional reaction. Right. It's like, guys, back up. Remember, no splice. Oh, but one shots are okay, but maybe pads are okay. But no, it's guys, you've got to think rationally. It's just this fear of being sued, and it's legitimate because non-thinking, non-rational, by-the-letter lawyers are going to come in and say, you violated this, zero tolerance. And there are plenty of examples in history of zero tolerance not working. Yeah. And so it's it's irrational, but it's fair for those that own businesses and busted their butts and put it all on the line and risked the finances and did 24-hour days for years. It's a fair concern, but I just wish that we have rational conversations and say...
that's what I'm trying to do with this episode versus a lot of the other stuff that I've seen on other YouTube channels, not yours. But I've seen people trying to stir stuff up because they know it gets they know that it gets eyeballs, and they put out an AI thing and they get a lot of eyeballs, and then they go, well, I'm going to do another one. So they keep digging a deeper and deeper hole, and to some extent, I believe that some of it is fear mongering for their own benefit.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, but it is a slippery slope because the tools, I think, are acceptable to many, if not most of the people. I don't think anybody at a TV network is going to say, I'm sorry, this was mastered using AI, therefore it can't go on our network. However, if it was a composition generated with AI, that's where the problem is, because under current copyright law in the United States, it can't be copyrighted. Here's another thing that I don't know if I've seen this mentioned anywhere, but I did think of it on my own, I believe. It might have been an original thought. International copyright law. Copyright laws vary from country to country. What might be acceptable in America could be completely unacceptable in the UK or Denmark or Africa or wherever. Well, Africa's a continent, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. The Copyright Office of Africa, yes.
Yeah. No, it's legitimate concern. So if you look at, being an IT engineer, there's different regulations around protecting credit card information, protecting healthcare and personally identifiable information, and governments really rarely ever get it right. They overcompensate. For example, there's a concept in Europe, in the EU, it's called the right to be forgotten. When you want, if you say, I don't want you as a company to store my data, Facebook or Amazon or whomever, I have the right, and this is law in the EU, for you to remove any existence of data of my presence online. Simple in concept, but when you have 7 years of tape backups of your archives, etc. You're saying now I got to go back and pull those tapes and delete that data. It's logistically
Right.
impossible, but it's mandated. Often these mandates make zero sense from a procedural or practical perspective.
And anything that hits one server is on at least one other server, if not 20 other
Yep.
servers. Redundancy, baby. It's out there. So I went before this show today and I Googled AI. I can't remember if it said AI driven, AI assisted audio plugins. There are a bunch of them that we all know that have AI components in there. So I think, it's just my opinion today, could change tomorrow or a month from now, but today I think using AI plugins is fine. Using generative AI to do your composition, not cool. Another issue that we haven't talked about yet, lyrics. So every month when we do the Taxi member success stories, we've got like 9 slots in the newsletter forum. And we reach out to members who may be mentioned on the forum, or maybe they mention it on their Taxi member homepage, and we get an email that's inbound to us about it. And we reach out to the member and say, can you elaborate a little bit more? We would love to include this in our success stories in this month's newsletter. People send back stuff that I swear they've typed it on their phone with their fat little thumbs. There's no punctuation, there's no capitals, there's no sentence breaks, there's no paragraph breaks. I mean, it's a mess. It's like somebody texting the Titanic is sinking. And that stuff gets forwarded to me. I do the newsletter. I'm a control freak and I do the newsletter. So I sit down with that stuff and I spend between 10 and 14, maybe as much as 16 hours sometimes on one weekend a month doing that newsletter. I can't do it at the office. Too many distractions. I need to be totally in the zone to do it. And I hated that more than anything. And I've been doing it for 10 years or better. Along came ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So I took somebody's mess of a response, which I appreciate the fact that they respond and let us know. But it was a mess, and I put it in a ChatGPT. It's all about the prompts, kids. If you want to get good stuff from AI, you got to understand how to prompt. Go buy a book or go to a website that teaches you how to write specific prompts for the type of stuff that you want to do. So I did that, and I said something to the effect of, from an editor's perspective, edit this for cohesiveness, punctuation, spelling, and conversational flow, something to that effect. And I can take a mess and dump it in there, and what I get back is pretty darn good. But then I have to go through it one more time, because you would know, you would look at that and go, I'll bet you Laskow used ChatGPT on this. So I go through and humanize it. And the end result is I save a lot of time. On those success stories alone, it's typically about a 3-hour thing to get 9 of them whipped into shape. And now I can do it in an hour, maybe 10 minutes. So AI does, as a tool, is awesome. Don't go answering in the chat room, Paulie. Come on, man. We're supposed to. Not everybody who sees this is going to see the chat room. So I want to get words.
I want to stay relevant. We're good. We're good.
All right. Okay. So what about using AI as a thesaurus or a rhyming dictionary?
Yeah, it's text. So what is the concern about using it to generate lyrics? Is there concern that you're going to get a lyric that sounds similar to another song? All the songs have been written, all the melodies have been written, all the lyrics have been written. It's kind of silly to think that you got to be sued over copyright, especially when you got folks that are copying and pasting complete song lyrics into Suno. That's a copyright violation. It's a violation of Suno's terms and conditions. You're taking a Taylor Swift lyric and putting it into AI and saying 1989 blonde pop star, happy indie pop, and put the song lyric, and you're putting "Shake It Off" as the name of the song. You're putting "Shake It Off" in the description and the prompt, and then you're surprised when the song comes back sounding somewhat like that song. It's the users abusing the tool intentionally, trying to get it to do stuff that it was not created for. It's like using a 3D printer to create copies of, Pokemon characters or Disney character figurines or whatever. It's the user, not the tool. AI is a tool. It's something that we need to learn how to use the courts will take a long time, but they'll figure it out, and it's going to follow the money. That's what's going to happen at the end. I got a story to tell about not embracing technology. So my father, may he rest in peace, long ago was an artist, talented artist, and by day he was a draftsman, which is an artist, a big gigantic table at an angle with slide protractors and rulers, and he was drawing by hand cooling systems for nuclear reactors and things like that. Very, very detailed pencil work, special pencils, all this great stuff. And then this thing called AutoCAD was developed in the 80s. The software that you could do wire vector graphics on a computer. And my dad was diehard artist. He's like, I'm not going to learn one of those damn computers, blah, blah, blah. And 2 years later, he was unemployed because he refused to learn AutoCAD. AutoCAD became the standard. And he never learned to use computers, and that led to other issues. So, but he was stubborn and refused to at least learn and understand the technology. And I see a lot of musicians today doing the same thing. AI has no soul. Does it matter? Are you competing with AI for a spot at a music festival, or are you competing with AI for an underscore of 20 seconds on some reality show? The latter category has more worry than the musician and the artist. AI is not going to replace artists. In fact, AI may generate more demand for artists, because if the world gets saturated with crappy AI music, which is a legitimate concern that lots of folks are talking about, maybe that will generate a greater demand by humans for more human created music. And therefore, I want to see musicians, which means there's more demand, which means we need more clubs, we need more concerts, more tickets, and more recordings, etc. So maybe a saturation of AI crap, which will not be crap eventually, will make a demand for real music be better. And that, at the end of the day, makes it better for all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Backwards?
No, it makes sense. It's the years between now and when that might happen that's what drives the fear.
And it's the money and the lawsuits and the fear of your business being shut down because some person click copyright claim, you owe me $1 million for that crappy thing I wrote 20 years ago, and you took 4 seconds of it, and therefore I should get paid $1 million.
By the way, remember I mentioned my instrumental, I think tension cue, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I played it and Shazammed it, and it came up with a match. And I listened to the thing that it matched. I could not identify anything. As a human being, listening to the thing that it said, this is what your thing is, it wasn't. So I don't know if
technology is still new. All that, unless there's an actual watermark. I've had several tune sat detections for things that were not mine. Track trqk.io. I use that to track my royalties and how I'm doing. It has detection software. It's found a bunch of tension drones and other stuff, ambient drones that are not mine. Drones and tension underscores. There's so many pads and so many sounds that are similar. It's AI. I think Shazam and that technology, while Shazam is better, it's still quite flawed. It's about as useful as Facebook's algorithm to detect, offensive content. It's getting a copyright strike for a 10-year-old, picture of a dog with a red nose, and it's considered violent content. What?
Right.
Humans are not involved, and it's a problem. Just like getting copyright strikes on YouTube, there's not a person you can track down and say, "Look, this is my music." And there's a lot of flaws in the process, but everyone has to sit back and avoid being sued until things get ironed out. It may be decades, because look, the courts have not figured out free speech and social media, because social media, there's nothing in the Constitution about that. So they're so far behind on that. What makes us think that they're going to catch up with music?
That's a great point. That should let people sleep easier tonight, because the sync industry will not go to robots until the legal stuff has been taken care of. And you're right. Wow, that's a great point. I think that I've asked everything I want to. So at this point, I want to open up I'm actually going to deliver a half an hour of Q&A from the audience. I always say I'm going to do it, and somehow we go off the path and it doesn't get done. So guys, in the chat room, while I'm trying to get my air conditioner to click on, and it won't, even though I got the new thermostat and I can operate it remotely from my phone, and it's getting pretty toasty in here right now. So type the word question in all caps, so it makes it easy for me to see, and then I will relay them to Paul.
And while you're doing that, let me throw some things out to pontificate upon.
Okay.
One of the biggest concerns I hear the past couple of months in this topic is saturation that I mentioned earlier. Like, if you're a beat maker out there, I opened up a BeatStars account during COVID. and millions of beats. Market's saturated. There's a lot of beat makers out there. There are roughly 100,000 songs that get uploaded to streaming services every day. It used to be 60,000. Actually, I think it's 100.
So slow down a minute. Say those numbers again.
There are roughly 100,000 to 120,000 songs that get uploaded to streaming services every day.
Okay.
Every day. It used to be 60,000, then 80. It's over 100,000 songs per day. How do we compete with that? How do we get discovered as artists when that much music is getting online? Then you've got YouTube. Some estimates say that YouTube has between 10 and 15 billion videos. What percentage of those are music? Have you found a YouTube channel yet, or YouTube video for composers out there that have a catalog? Have you seen a video pop up with your name on it and your music that you did not create? It was auto-generated by YouTube. That's happened to me. It's bizarre. Why can they do that, but I can't do that? And then look at the concepts of TikTok and Instagram. 30-second clips, 1-minute clips. Is that saturating or damaging the music market? The use of music
it's driving the music market.
It is, but it's driving new content. It's taking away compositional story arcs and the history and the tradition of music. And how do you take a song and put it into a story arc into a 1 minute, a 60-second Instagram or TikTok friendly, piece? So, and then you got folks listening on iPhones. All that work we do with our mastering and our panning and our EQ and a console emulation to folks listening in the mono earplug. It's crazy. Rambling, but anyway, I wanted to put some about. Oh, we got some questions going.
I am trying so hard to get my AC to go on. It just won't. Anyway, okay. The first question is going back up here. Ken Bearden
and
AI will never achieve human emotion. AI can write or sing a note, but it'll never be able to make you feel it. Do you agree?
I disagree.
And I'm neutral on it, but you know what? There are a lot of people who don't give a damn. Having a piece of music play underneath Kim Kardashian not getting the cap off the milk thing, nobody cares about emotion.
Rick Beato said that. Rick Beato had a video, and he said, people don't care how the music was made. They care about how the music feels. And by the way, folks in the chat room, I've been wanting to say this forever. I think Rick Beato and Michael Laskow are related. They look. I see Beato. I'm like, dude, he looks like he's Michael's brother, for crying out loud. They look alike. No, I disagree. I think AI. I know AI can create emotional music because emotional is individual. If you go to Suno or Udio right now and say emotional neoclassical piano, sad, longing, funeral, it'll generate stuff that if you close your eyes, that could be a human person playing a piano. It can make you energetic. It can give you the feeling EDM, festival music. It can definitely make emotions. The skill set and the emotion and the humanness of the creator is valid for us as humans, but the output is what matters, and the reaction that the listener gets to the output is what matters. So
say that again slowly. You're moving way too fast.
I am sorry. I do that, and I have no caffeine. This is all natural. How the music was created does not matter to the listener. It's the output of the music and how they feel about it is what matters. Yep. Again, we're getting hung up as the small percentage of that pie I talked about earlier.
Wasn't it
creators?
Maya Angelou? Oh, thank God it just turned on. Yay, thank you, gods of air conditioning. Maya Angelou famously said, and I may mess up this quote a little bit, she was the, poet laureate for the United States for a long time, highly respected and adored poet.
Legendary, yeah.
She said, people won't remember what you said, they'll remember how it made you feel.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to borrow that.
Do you know, when I had the idea for this company, I called a guy named John Brahaney, who was legendary from the LA Songwriters Showcase days, and I hired him over at a bagel place to be a consultant to help me get the company up and running.
I love a good bagel.
And he told me that quote, and I've never forgotten it. It's an important quote.
It is. I want to comment real quick. Martin, after Ken Bearden's question, Martin Graba made a comment, 100,000 songs a day, that's a lot of crap. So people often say the AI is generating crap, soulless music. I suggest that you go fire up Sirius XM and throw on the Hip Hop Nation and listen to the state of trap. Listen to the state of trap music today. And I say this as a hip hop guy. A third of my placements of my 1,500 tracks out there are hip hop, trap, urban. I grew up Grandmaster Flash through today. I love hip hop. You've listened to today, and you take the vocals out. Go to YouTube and search a current hip hop song and look for karaoke version, and you listen to it. There's like 5 elements. It's incredibly simple, boring, soulless tripe. So one man's tripe and soulless crap is another man's top 10 Billboard hit. So you could say the same thing about some country music, some other music as well. So crap and tripe and soulless is really subjective. It's not objective.
Okay. Miss Jehovah or Mass Jehovah says, asks, can you recommend a good site to learn prompts? 6 months ago, I bought a book because there weren't any good sites yet. Now there are sites. I just can't tell you what they are. But you know what? Google it, and
YouTube.
you'll be able to find out. But there are some basic rules of writing prompts. One of the rules that I've learned. Did I save that? Look at this. I taped it to the wall of my office. Okay, so ChatGPT prompting cheat sheet. Act as a role: the CEO, the inventor, the analyst, the teacher, the marketer, therapist, journalist, advertiser, lawyer, interviewer. So put yourself in a persona. So I am the CEO who is looking for create a task, a headline, and show it to me as plain text file. So by doing this is one site, one person's opinion, but I tried stuff using this approach and liked it enough that I put some painter's tape on it.
Yep.
And stuck
Well,
it to the wall.
I've got a fantastic prompt that I've been using for a few months now. It's too big to paste in the thing. I could break it into a couple pieces, but basically, you're right. You want to say you first identify GPT's role. You are a musician. You're a lawyer. You're a psychologist, whatever. And so, I'll just read it for a second. Your goal is to help me craft the best possible prompt for my needs. The prompt will be used by you, GPT. You will follow the following process. 1.
Slow down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Believe me, I that's what woke me up at 5 minutes to 4 this morning. The fear of you talking so damn fast.
I do. So you will follow the following process. Your first response will be to ask me what the prompt should be about. I'll provide my answer, but we'll need to improve it through continued iterations. 2, based on my input, you'll generate 3 sections: a revised prompt, suggestions, and questions. We will continue this iterative process until I say you're done. Go. So you're telling it to, here's what I want to talk about, and it's going to say, what do you mean? Do you mean this? Give me clarification. And it goes till you say, great. And it'll say, here's a new prompt. And then you'll say, okay, great, that's good. Let's keep going. It's a really cool prompt. It's interactive. Very, very effective.
And by the way, for those of you who haven't used, I don't use ChatGPT more than maybe an hour in total a week. Unless I'm feeling experimental and sit down, spend 4 hours with it on a Saturday. But you don't have to keep typing the full prompt in. It gives you the result from your initial prompt, and you could say, give me 20 more, but stress this. Give me another. It does. It remembers the project you're in the middle of, and it will act in a humanoid-like fashion. It understands what you're going for, and it's waiting for another command. All right.
Also, real quick, it's you can dictate the level that you want it back to. So you can say, explain to me at a 5th grade reading level what AI transformers are, or what music sync is, or whatever. And you can tell me like a 3rd grader, tell me like a college student, etc. You can tell and give it to me in a bulleted list. Give it to me in table format. Go to YouTube, Google search. There's tons of great prompts out there.
Where did that one go? Do you believe that AI will ever be able to digitally master as well as a human can?
It's all you, Michael. This is your domain. I'll say yes.
I think it may actually surpass what a human can do. But you know what? Nobody will be able to hear the difference.
Good point. The artifacts, the frequencies we can't hear, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's just, I got to tell you, years ago there was a taxi band that got a record deal and they couldn't find a manager that they liked. I mean, once you're offered a major label deal, managers, like real managers, come out of the woodwork. And they didn't like any of them they met. So they said, would you guys mind being our temporary manager for like 6 months so we can slow the process down and find somebody we can live with for a while? I said, sure.
I'll add to the mastering concept. I'm mostly deaf in my right ear. I have significant tinnitus.
Yeah.
And when Marcus, our friend Marcus, told me about Ozone, I'm like, oh my God. And I got Ozone 8, I think, back in the day. And I used it to help master. And it literally changed my mastering life. It compensated for all the crap that I can't hear. I can't hear hi-hats and triangles and shakers and the right sides. I got to pan left to hear those things. And so it changed my life. So these tools are very, very helpful, whether it's the Apple mastering or Ozone or Lander. They're very, very impressive.
So I took that the band asked me to take their finished master and go to the mastering session. They didn't live in town. They didn't even know what happened in a mastering session. Hey, Laskow, you know what's going on. So I went to the mastering session. Very famous mastering engineer, and he looked over his shoulder and he said, shut the door. I shut the door. He goes, I'm going to turn you on to something because you come from the same school of audio engineering that I do. We're both, a couple old guys. What he did to make it sound better was take the output of a 2-track half-inch tape, which inherently sounds pretty darn good, analog tape, and then ran it into about a 1984 Ampex tape recorder and took the output of the 2-track Ampex tape recorder and went to the DAT machine that was being mastered to.
Wow.
And I said, what else? And he goes, there is no else. I said, that's it? You famous mastering engineer, this is what you do? He said, the electronics on this machine for so many genres of music sounds so much better than all the knob tweaking I could do. The end result is all we're looking for. And just so everybody knows, mastering, people think that there's like some magical fairy dust. All it does is just kind of even out the level and make sure that your bottom, middle, and top are where they should be. It's just one last look. It just adds a little bit of polish, but it's not going to get you a record deal. It's not going to get you one more sync. And I do understand. I'm not going to go into, why mastering came about to get the grooves the right depth in the record, in the lacquers when they were cutting them. Nobody's going to sign you because it's mastered. Nobody's going to pass on you because it's not mastered. So
and if you want more stories like this, go to my YouTube channel and look for the Michael Laskow interview. Michael and I talked for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and he's just got story after story. I mean, you go to my page, search for Michael Laskow. You'll find it's a fantastic interview that needs more views because the stories are important musical history. Yeah.
But nobody gave a damn. I went and looked at it like a month after it went up, and it had like 94 views compared to, like 484 and everything else. Nobody gives a damn about what I experienced in the studio. But
Michael Franklin, how do you know these big artists?
Hold on, that's not your job.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Ed McMahon. Know your place, damn it.
Yes.
There was another one from Anthony Cruz.
Yes, wise one.
I got feedback from Recording Academy last year at a conference that AI-generated music that is edited or modified with some significance is copyrightable. Can you verify that? I don't really understand exactly what that means, to be honest.
I think that means if you're getting a musical, you generate some music and then you take it and make it your own by chopping it, mixing it, using the pieces, recreating it yourself.
So you're using the AI as a tool, not as a generative composition.
Right. I did that I got a video on that. I'm making a trap beat. I asked for a kabuki theater ensemble sample, and it gave me a wonderful thing, and I found what I liked, and I incorporated it into an Asian influenced trap beat. That's also on my channel as well. Is there a copyright concern because the Kabuki Musicians Union is going to be upset that I use that sitar illegally? I don't know. I think AI tools.
Kabukis don't use sitars, do they? That's the wrong country.
Is it the wrong country? Wrong country?
Yeah, sitar is Indian.
I'm thinking the long ding 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 ding. The long.
No, it's a Kodo.
Kodo, thank you. Not a sitar.
I've got one hanging on my wall, an actual Kodo. I knocked it over in a store, and the guy said, "You broke it. You bought it." And it was $500. I said, "Give me 20% off. We got a deal." So he gave it to me for $400.
You negotiated.
I did, because I didn't break it. I knocked it over, but nothing broke. And
That's
then
hysterical.
he charged me $400 to box it and ship it to LA. I was in Seattle. Oh well. Okay. Next question. Oh my goodness. A lot of questions. Ooh, we got to speed up our answers.
Yeah, I'll be more concise, my friend.
That's not possible. I know you're well enough to know.
Slower and more concise, I swear.
Right, exactly. Question from Michael Franklin. How do you know that these big artists aren't using AI behind the scenes?
We don't.
Has anybody invented an AI detector? I know that Rick Beato's children apparently have them built in.
They do.
Rick tells the story. He's walking down the hall listening to something on his phone. His kid walks by and goes, "Why are you listening to that AI crap, Dad?"
Well, his kid is an alien. Dylan has an amazing ear. If you've seen the videos of him as a kid,
Yeah.
perfect pitch. He's crazy. We don't know if they're using it or not. It's just it. There are tools that will detect if something was written by ChatGPT, and there are tools that will detect that in college. My son is going to be a senior this year in college, and teachers have access to tools that can say, "Oh, this answer was most likely, statistically likely to be written by GPT." But there are tools that can un-GPT it, so it's a battle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the world, it's freaking me out. Let's talk politics. No, let's not.
No, let's not.
What do you think are the best uses of AI as creators that we can take advantage of at the moment? This is from Katrina Seifert, all the way from Australia. Hello, Katrina. I'd love your opinion on that. What do you think are the best uses of AI as creators?
It's tough. I mean, it's all predicated on the legal concerns. So I think AI is fantastic at idea generation, on lyric generation.
Title generation. Remember
I did
that
a video on
episode?
that too.
I did an episode like a year ago on how I use it for titles, and it worked great.
Yeah, no, it's great for title generation. Like go in and say, I did some stuff for Shark Week a year ago, and I said I need some 2-word titles about sharks in deep water, and it was great. But it's great for lyrics. I'm not a lyricist. I have mad respect for lyrics. That's a gift I don't have. And people will say, "Oh, give me a song about my cat dying." Boom. And someone, "Oh, that's cheesy." But you've got a full song now that you, as a gifted lyricist, can go in and tweak and change. And how many hours did you just save? Now, if you're creative as an artist wannabe, that's one thing. But if you're a creative on a deadline to meet a deadline, these tools will help you with lyric ideas. They can help you with chord progressions, melodic ideas.
Definitely don't use AI for generating vocals.
No.
We have had to bust a couple of members recently that sent stuff in and their thing was, "Look, you guys, the listing asked for female vocals. I only had a male vocal."
Unless you want to use it as a demo for your live vocalist to sing.
Right.
But don't
That's fine.
submit the AI vocal to the actual listing.
Right. The screener could hear that it was AI, so the screener's name was probably Dylan Beato or something.
Or was Cher. It was a Cher track.
And he doesn't mean Cher like you mean like Sonny and Cher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, looking for my next question here. Do you think Fuzzy Daniels? It's funny. You're the only second person in my lifetime I've ever met named Fuzzy. We used to have a screener named Fuzzy. Do you think coming up with a new sound would be the way to go? Well, 2 schools of thought on that. Being the next Beatles is awesome. Coming up with a world-changing, totally unique and original sound is awesome. Unfortunately, the industry and human beings like to stay in a comfort zone of familiarity. They might want something, let's say dramedy cue that normally would have like pizzicato strings in it. The libraries love it when somebody does a pizzicato cue without a dramedy cue without pizzicato strings, maybe pizzy done on another instrument. It makes it just different enough. I call it the 15% rule. Go 15% left or right of center, and you're probably fine. The minute you create something that is, you've created your own genre, then nobody can search for it. because it doesn't fit in a genre. Editors won't think of it because it's not in a genre. On the other hand, if you're creating music for the sake of art and personal satisfaction, and that's your life goal is to create a new genre, and you don't care about generating any income with it, go for it.
Exactly.
Make yourself happy. Maybe you'll be that one in a million.
Artists are free to do what they want, innovate all you can, but the business of music is not where you innovate.
That's right. Give them what they ask for. That's the cool thing about the music industry is they tell you what they want. I mean, literally, you know, I've told the shoe store analogy
I was
1,000.
the shoe store. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, when I was 15 years old, I ran the shoe department in my parents' little department store in a tiny little farm town. And
Slave labor.
Yeah, I got paid. I think I was getting like 25 or 50 cents an hour back then, but it was the 60s, you know. Yeah. Anyway, if somebody comes in, if a lady walks in and wants a women's pump in 7.5B with a 3.5-inch heel, and you bring out a gentleman's Bass Weegian penny loafer in 9.5D, they're both great shoes, but the lady can't use that penny loafer. So the music industry gives you a roadmap. We need some of this. That's why Taxi was invented. The shoe store definitely inspired it. Which AI tool is better, Suno or Udio? Have you used both, Paul, and do you have an opinion?
They're different. I actually did a video. I sound like a shameless plugger. There's a video comparing the two, the same prompt in both tools. It's a couple months old now. Maybe I should redo it. I felt that Udio was better with rock than Suno, but Suno was better at trap. So I just said, hey, they're both free. Pop the browsers up, create a prompt, copy and paste, in the genre of your choice, and see which is better for you. They're constantly changing.
Tim Walker, I changed my mind on my question. Sorry for the fat fingers. Hey, man, nobody's fat shaming your fingers around here. We're way too cool. Rick Beato is old and grumpy. He has his moments. I'll give you that. Watching My Brave Little Toaster when I was a kid made me believe that things are alive. Yeah, my wife always says she couldn't sleep in a room with dolls or something when she was a kid because she was afraid they would become alive at night and attack her or something.
Ken Bearden says it's sad that you've been assimilated. I don't know if that's aimed at us or a comment in there. I'm curious.
Where you must be way farther down there. What is
no?
Ken
That
Bearden?
was right after the coming up with a new sound comment.
Oh, I'm past that already. What did he say? So I don't have to spend a half an hour looking for it.
No, he just said it's sad that you've become assimilated. I don't think I'm assimilated, but I don't know if the comment was aimed at us or a previous commenter. I don't think adopting technology and being willing to use it as a tool instead of being replaced by it is being assimilated. But my dad refused to be assimilated, but he also ended up not working. I think these tools are great for idea generation and getting you out of a creative rut. They're very, very useful. I've got a lot of videos on that to talk about.
When wagon wheels became obsolete, learn how to make tires.
Yeah.
You know?
There you go.
Clarence Goodyear, or no, that's Clarence Birdseye. I mixed, it's like a mixed metaphor. Okay, scrolling down into virgin territory. What are Paul's biggest concerns? This is from J.I. What are Paul's biggest concerns about AI music in licensing?
My biggest concerns are that Suno loses the lawsuit and they kill the technology, making them start over, and that people continue to pursue zero tolerance mindsets around AI. We didn't really get into it earlier. Like we talked a little bit, I mentioned Splice, and you kind of hinted at the different things, the various aspects. We talked about lyric generation, we talked about mixing, but is an AI drum one shot? Do I have to admit to that? Do I have to admit to an AI generated pad or an AI generated kabuki theater instrumental?
That's all part of the slippery slope, because the problem is, at least in the context of Taxi members submitting in response to our listings, which are briefs that we get from the industry, if we allow this and that and the other thing, then they could say, well, you didn't say that I couldn't do AI for writing my entire lyric. But that's a different thing, and it's affected by copyright. So I tend to agree with you that, you know, a one-shot
a drum beat. I mean,
Yeah, a piano sound. I mean, I'm telling you, that string sound I heard on that thing, it gave me goosebumps. It's like, wow.
if you write trap beats, go to Suno and say trap beat and put maybe a couple of other descriptors, and you'll think, man, that is kicking. I can rap over that. It's legit. And trap is not complex music. You know, your 808 kick, your syncopated pattern, and your crispy hi hat and snare. Why is that not? Why can I not use that? Why can I not take that beat and chop it? You know, like DJ Payne is a killer chopper. You know, why can't I take a sample instead of? I mean, shoot, when it was at Google, I forget. There's a promotional video about these tools, and they had famous rappers and such saying, "I don't have to go through record crates anymore. I can create."
Right.
I did this thing with a blaxploitation '70s funk groove that I wanted to chop up, and it was fantastic. He gave me a great thing, and I'm chopping it. So does it matter? Because is chopping samples for beats, is that stealing? That's more stealing than AI creation is, because you're actually taking an audio copy and then chopping it, whereas AI
again,
is
you're using it as a tool, not for generative composition.
Exactly. I mean, do you use I use a product called Atlas to generate beats or drums mixes. I didn't realize until I searched for it. Atlas is by Algonaut, is an AI tool. There are other tools as well. There's one called Aiva in France. It's a classical music tool, and it's endorsed by the French Performing Composing Musicians Association. So that gets the question, well, can I do classical music with AI because those are all public domain? Or am I going to be sued by the Beethoven estate? I don't know. Do we only care about the top artists at Spotify who are the only making money in the first place, that they're not going to make enough money? Yeah. When it's us at the bottom that are not making it, it's kind of a silly lawsuit. It makes me frustrated. I'm going to start talking mad and reaching for bourbon soon if we keep going on that.
All right, let me answer another question here. Who's next in line? Oh, Super Blonde asked one for me. Has an AI destroyed the copywriting market, i.e. generic content for advertising or web? I would say SEO copywriting for the web, that AI, I've seen a bunch of stuff. I can see that it's AI. I'm fanatical. He knows that I'm fanatical about copywriting, and I've read like 800 marketing books, many of which are on copywriting. I love the craft of writing good headline, subject lines, and copy. I have yet to see an example where AI is better than a rookie who's never done it before, but it's not as good as somebody who's trained in the craft. Maybe someday it will be.
While you're looking, did you know that a single search or query in ChatGPT consumes 17 times more power, electricity, than a Google search?
Yeah.
For those that are green.
And did you read today that Elon Musk just opened up a new, I don't even know what you call it, but basically he's opened up the world's biggest server farm for AI somewhere. You leave it to Elon, always coming up with
my tip
ideas.
For you, NVIDIA stock, even though it's high, is a play. I'm up 5x this year. NVIDIA, it's not going to disappear. Invest in GPUs, anything related to AI, because AI is not going to disappear.
No, it's not. I bought some NVIDIA stock, and it was one of the, I own like 4 stocks. I am not like a day trader. I'm not a big stock guy. I used to always have, really like a Vanguard mutual fund. And then one day, some kid walked into the office here at Taxi with an iPhone, brand new, first generation iPhone. And I went swipe, and I walked down to my office, called my stockbroker, and said, I want to buy X amount of dollars of Apple stock. And he said, I won't let you buy one single stock. You have to buy a fund. I hung up on him. I called TD Ameritrade, opened an account, and I bought Apple stock in 2007. So there you go. And I bought NVIDIA the day, first time I used ChatGPT, I literally bought NVIDIA 5 minutes later.
Nice.
Good, yeah.
It's the Peter Lynch principle. Buy what you can identify and you see in your world every day.
I sat next to a gentleman who was the largest independent owner of banks in America on a flight when I was 19 years old. And he looked like the banker from a Monopoly set. He really did.
Got the mustache,
Yeah, his name was Robert Groh. And for some reason, I was 19 years old. I spent an extra $100 or $200 of my own money to upgrade to first class because I was flying from Miami to Chicago to go home for the holidays to see my folks. I wanted to see what the experience was like. And he said, why did you do it? And I said, curiosity. He said, well, there's a better class of people up here. You'll meet people that are successful, like me, young man. And he said, only his one thing that I've always remembered was only buy stock in things that you use and you love. And you can never go wrong, because if you use them and love them, so do a lot of other people. There you go.
You can explain what the company does to your grandfather, and he'll get it.
There you go. All right, one more question, and then we're out of here. We've got about 30 seconds left to go. Boy, am I asking the wrong guy. Sorry.
Okay, I will try.
Scrolling down. Here's one from Edmund Red. Hello, Edmund. Can AI generate sound design? Would it be a differentiator factor if we use sound design in our cues, not sound effects per se?
I've heard of tools doing sound design, creating sound effects. I've not pursued any of them, but they do exist. Probably a quick search will help you find those. You create, because AI tools are creating new audio content, and you can say, give me German polka, hip hop, Hungarian classical music. It'll go through its database and merge those things together for something that's never been heard before. You can ask it to create sounds. I imagine that database, that data set is probably not as large as the music data set, but I'm sure that it's out there.
All right, so we are at the end of today's show. I see Michael Mishna wants to know if I can make copies of the ChatGPT prompt sheet, cheat sheet. No, because it's owned by somebody, so I can't copy it and redistribute it. But just go online and Google ChatGPT prompt cheat sheet. You'll find it.
GPT cheat sheet is all you need. You'll find something.
Okay, so first of all, Polly, thank you for doing this. I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate you taking the time and spending time talking to me about today's show last night on a weekend. So much appreciated. Next week's show, we are going to do the A&R hot seat, where you guys decide, did the screener get it right? Was this a forward or was this a return? Those are always fun to do. Don't forget the Taxi Road Rally. On Friday morning at the rally, I'm going to do something we've never done in 27 previous years, which is a panel. Instead of a keynote person, I'm going to do a keynote panel, and I've invited Paulie to be on it. And we're going to have two very prominent people from the music library industry, possibly an attorney. I haven't found an attorney that knows as much about AI as Paulie does. Because they only look at things from their perspective, which I understand, which is the legal perspective, and it's too early to have anything substantive on the legal side. All they can really do is quote current copyright law, which is not that exciting. Anyway, I think that I'm going to make sure that is just like the best AI thing at a conference ever so far. If you haven't...
Study up.
If you're new to the channel, give us a like before you boogie out of here. Hit that red subscribe button and that little bell. And don't forget, the Taxi Road Rally is going to be held in Los Angeles, November 7th through the 10th. It is free for every single Taxi member. Free. You could spend $400 or $500, go to another conference, but why would you? The Road Rally is bigger, better, it's badass, and it's free. Did I say free? It is. And I will see you guys next week. Paulie, thank you again. Go visit his videos on YouTube. They're excellent at Yo Paulie Music. And I will see you guys next Monday. Bye-bye.